gotta try something a little different here. I've been doing TV reviews and movie reviews and all that stuff on my website, which also has my comic strips. That's soundedbettermyhead.com. I'll probably say it again in here because I want people to go there. And by the way, doing a YouTube video, which is my first one, it's a lot harder than you think because you're basically just staring at a wall and pretending that someone gives a shit about what you're saying. So anyways, I'm going to do a more in-depth review and more spoiler-filled review of Legends of Tomorrow Season 3. Like I said, I've already done that on my website. If you want to just read it, that's there, and I'll post a link and all that good stuff. So, got a few notes here so I can keep myself somewhat on track. I think the big thing about this new season is that they pretty much went full on out with the goofiness and the silliness. And it's a little bit jarring, even though the last couple seasons were a little silly. And my example is that if you watch the Thor Ragnarok and compare it to the previous Thors, it's just like almost a different character because it's so silly and goofy. And Legends basically does it now. I mean, Ray Palmer, the Atom, is brilliant. He's almost like the Iron Man of the Arrowverse. And as he progresses on Legends of Tomorrow, he's more and more kind of an idiot. He's still super smart, but just makes idiotic decisions over and over again. Matter of fact, the entire team seems to just make their situation worse by making dumb mistakes. Like, I believe it was the second episode, Nathaniel decides to take a selfie with Julius Caesar and gets a book pickpocketed that helps Caesar rule the world and pretty much screws everything up. You got Adam trying to use a shrink ray on a saber-toothed tiger, and he happens to sneeze, and now the tiger's giant, which is just kind of stupid. What else we got going on here? Thing that does work so much for the season is that the cast, I think with the fun-loving attitude everyone's got, it just gels really well. You know, leaves just pretty good funny moments between the cast. I mean, almost anything Mick says is hilarious, although sometimes they overdo it with his kind of gruffness. Like I said, Ray, so it gets more and more off the wall, more and more corny, and like just like an overgrown Boy Scout, which starts to work for his character. There's a running gag going on throughout the season with Nathaniel getting high on special drugs to help them go on these psychic journeys, and it's pretty funny. They overdo it a little bit. You have some new characters this season. They added Zari, who is very loosely based on Isis, who was the DC comic book character, and it was also the old Secrets of Isis TV show. And she's pretty not well defined in the beginning. You really don't know what her powers are. She kind of does this tornado thing. They never really explain it. And she really doesn't gel until they do the Time Loop episode where she bonds with the team. You get to see her personality a lot more. She's just not kind of standing there. And they don't seem to, she's supposed to be from the future, near future. It doesn't really seem to play into the plot whatsoever. And then again, neither does really Vixen being from the 40s, but. And also late in the season, Kid Flash joins the show and seems to be having a lot of fun. But very quickly, as I said, he's having fun. Another minor addition to the season was bringing Leonard Snart back from Earth X, which personally I don't think really worked very well. He was like a pale version of the classic Earth 1 Leonard Snart. And just the fact, you knew he wasn't sticking around. There's no reason to get attached to him. He just kind of showed up and he's just like, hey, I'm the gay version of Captain Cold and I'm a hero. And there's not really that much more to him. Doesn't really lend much to like the action scenes. He's just, like they just wanted to throw him in. They had nothing better to do. The overall plot this season, first of all, they start off with a great concept from the cliffhanger of last season. Time is broken. They show up. There's dinosaurs walking down New York, middle of New York. There's Eiffel Towers in New York. I mean, everything's chaos. But, it's strongly established as a new season. But then immediately they just brush it all over. It's like, oh, Time Bureau's here. We just fixed everything in about 2 minutes. So now let's go to a completely new direction. I mean, there are sort of elements about time being broken, but it's that does end up being tied towards Malice and the new plot, but it takes a long time to get to that point. And they got this kind of weird subplot going where like Mick meets his dad, who for some reason has a flamethrower too and talks with the same rough voice. And Stein meets his great-great-grandfather, and it seems like that's going somewhere for a minute, them running into their past selves, and it really doesn't pay off like they say it will. They do a couple more homages this season. There's a E.T. parody homage that actually works pretty well. It's a little corny, but it plays the right notes. Some of the other historical figures that show up, Blackbeard's so-so and not that great. Helena Troy actually ended up being a pretty decent addition, especially now they roll into the ending with the Themyscira, but her coming back is basically an Amazon season finale. The Elvis thing is mediocre. They hyped up the young Obama, and he was barely in the episode. Caesar was just mediocre. I mean, nothing really jumped out as being like that awesome. I don't know if I really want to get into this. I did a kind of an episode by episode breakdown. Maybe mention some things that jump out at me. Like I said, episode 2 was super corny. That's where you get to the shrink ray and the sneeze, and that was just kind of overly silly. Like reintroducing Damien Darhk, who I didn't get to earlier in this review. Started off as classic Darhk, and then as they progressed, he got a lot sillier, which usually worked. And when the more fatherly role came out and that protection of his daughter, I think it added a lot to not only his show but his character. Like I said, the Vietnam thing with Rod and Mick's father is just so. It was really cool seeing Constantine show up. I mean, it didn't seem to quite mix in yet with the crew, but there's a lot of potential, and he's supposed to be added to the main cast next season, so we'll like to see how that goes. Also, we get a lot into Damien Darhk's daughter, who, again, it's hard to know where I feel about her. Like, they did do the episode where he met her as a child, try to get some sympathy for her, which worked, but then they bring her back and she's just pure evil, and they still leave it ambiguous at the end how you should feel. Like, okay, Ray's buddy with her, but I don't know. We'll see how that plays out next season. The Ava character was okay. She was just kind of a background bureaucrat thrown on the side for the team. She becomes lovers with Sarah. We found out she's a clone, which was sort of interesting. I did like the fact that it turns out she's a 12th clone, so that they've done this before. They would see if they play into that anymore beyond next season. I doubt it. And as far as the season finale goes, it just pretty much took everything that this season had going, and this is like a pretty solid representation of this season. Just a pretty good fights, the humor, just the bizarre, the ginormous Beebo fighting a big winged demon. Cliffhanger was okay, just enough to be like, okay, we got something for next season. Probably the biggest thing I want to talk about, and I'm just going to ditch the notes here, was the Crisis on Earth X, which was interesting this season because last year's crossover, the episodes were pretty clearly separated. Like, this is the Arrow portion, it's all Arrow characters for the most part, and this kind of fits in the Arrow, and same thing with the Flash. This year, it just told one long story in 4 parts, and there was a tiny bit of a leaning towards whatever show was airing it, but not so much. But the Legends of Tomorrow did get the Death of Stein episode, which was ridiculously emotional, and it's not like Stein was like my favorite character. He was just there, and they already mentioned he was leaving the show, so it wasn't like I was sad that he's ditching the show. But for whatever reason, the way they pulled this off was just, it's like tear-jerking. Like, it was just ridiculously well done. The acting was good, just the dialogue was good. I mean, it's not just me. I watched a lot of reaction videos, and it seemed like every reactor was either in tears or close to it. The rest of the episode also went to this phenomenal fight scene between all the bad guys and all the different heroes of the Arrowverse. Everyone wasn't on board with the Flash letting the reverse Flash go, and the double wedding at the end was kind of, it was cool, but I don't think it really changed all that much as far as either show was concerned, the Arrow or the Flash that had the two weddings. And there's not really too much on here. Probably talked way longer than I wanted to on some stuff, and a lot less than I was planning to do on other stuff. Like I said, again, soundedbettermyhead.com. They got my TV reviews. As these shows are wrapping up, I'm putting them on there. All the Arrowverse stuff on there. You know, the Marvel stuff, Gifted, Legion will be on there. Shield, Gotham for DC still. And hopefully somebody watches this. Probably not. I keep getting flashbacks so that Thor Ragnarok skit where the Grandmaster makes this video on YouTube about conquering the world, and like him and Daryl are the only ones that watch it, and they got 1 view, so it might just be me watching this again. And that's about it. Hopefully people enjoy this, like it. Just if you like it, might as well subscribe because I'll do more. And that's about it.